Welcome to Your American Dream. I'm Anisha Jennings, and today's episode we have Melissa Armstrong, a powerhouse CPA who's transforming how small businesses grow. From the vibrant shores of Puerto Rico to the peaks of Denver, Melissa's story proves that smart financial strategy knows no borders. Welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you for having me, Anisha. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. So tell us all about Melissa and your journey from Puerto Rico to the US and your small stop in Spain.
Yes. Okay. I'm from Puerto Rico. I went to school there. I started my career in Puerto Rico as a CPA. Just followed everything by the book, high school, college, job, house, everything. And then I realized that I needed to have an adventure. I didn't have that gap year that is so common here in the US. It's not something that we do in Puerto Rico. And so I was feeling that adventure bug in me. I went to Spain on vacation in 2010 and I fell in love with Madrid. It was April, it was the spring. It was beautiful. There was singing and performing on the streets everywhere you turn a corner. There was so much architecture. Spanish people are just so lively, right? And they really know how to enjoy life. So I really fell in love with the city. Um, and I went back home after that trip ended, and I just kept telling my friends as a joke, oh, I'm just going to move to Spain. And then one day, I was working with one of my best friends, and our boss was also a friend. We were all having lunch together, and I was telling them, again, as a joke, I'm just going to move to Spain. And they were both like, why don't you? You're single, you don't have kids, the time to do it is now. And like, I really, really had no valid reason not to go. So I said, well, I owned a condo back then. I said, if I can sell my condo, I will. And so I called my realtor and he sold it in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 2010. Nothing was selling then. My place sold in 2 weeks. So I packed everything. I sold whatever I could, my furniture, my car, gave away what didn't sell, and just packed my cat, 3 suitcases, and moved to Spain. And I didn't know when I was going to come back. Like, I had a student visa and I had a plan to become certified as an English teacher, which I did. Didn't really have much of a plan beyond that, right? So I got there and like had to find housing, had to find a job. And it gave me a lot of like perspective on what being an immigrant is. I was very lucky because being in Spain and being from Puerto Rico, Spanish is my first language. So there was no language barrier for me, except for a few things that we say differently, right? But in general, I could function. But it was just like, I don't know the neighborhoods. How do I know where to pick? And do I want to have a roommate? Can I afford to live on my own? What's the currency conversion? How can I make my money last, right? Um, then do I want to be close to the school? Can I afford to be close to the school? The answer was no to that. Um, I didn't have roommates, but it made it work. I made it work, and it was just so much opportunity of discovery, right? Like figuring out the grocery store and just walking around the neighborhood and making friends. But it also taught me a lot about privilege, right? I met a lot of people there that were locals. The economy was really, really bad. There was a lot of people there who were struggling to find a job, or if they had a job, all of a sudden they were struggling to keep that job. And so the English teaching community was booming. Everybody had jobs. We were in high demand. because all of these professionals in Madrid, because of its history with the Franco rule, had been very isolated from the rest of, so it took them longer to get out of that. So while you had Barcelona, where a lot more people were bilingual or multilingual, spoke English, that wasn't the case in Spain, in Madrid. And so we were booming, we had jobs, but that wasn't the reality. The Spaniards living in Madrid were living. Everybody was struggling, right? So just knowing that I had that advantage of knowing the two languages just gave me that perspective of what privilege looks like, right? And then the other thing, I also met a lot of immigrants, especially from Central and South America, who had gone to Spain to work and be able to send money back home because they had children, they had aging parents that were making little to no money. And so it was more cost effective for them to move across the ocean to an entirely new country and work there to send money back. And they were, married, living with their spouse, and sharing an apartment with 2 or 3 other couples to save money so that they could send almost everything back home. So that was another, eye-opening perspective for me, because here I was moving to Spain on a whim because I wanted to have fun and have an adventure, right? Didn't struggle to find a job. Whereas there were other people who were like fighting every day to survive, and help other people. So that was my first journey as an immigrant, right? In a new country. After 3 years of frolicking around Spain, I realized that it was time to grow up. And so I came back. I have 2 siblings, and they have both lived in the continental US for a long time. So I reached out to my oldest brother and asked him if I could come to Colorado, borrow his couch, and try to figure out where I was going to go next. He very reluctantly said yes. So I stayed with him. Again, privilege came back to play. Because as a Puerto Rican, I don't know if you know this, but we are born American citizens. So coming here, I had my American passport. I didn't have to worry about a green card, a work permit, being able to come in legally. I just showed up with my bags and ready to work. Already had a social security card and everything like that, right? But it still is different for us because we speak mostly Spanish in Puerto Rico. Our everyday language is Spanish, right? So you come here and now you're speaking English every day, 24/7. So those first few days, you're just mentally exhausted at the end of the day from, having all of these conversations in English all the time. There's also, it's very different because you meet other people here. I have Mexican friends, I have Colombian friends, and we're all Latin American, but it's very different being Latin American from living in a continent than it is living in an island. There's some intricacies, right? Where we're very different. And being part of the US, we're technically not immigrants, but we are in an island, right? And so we're isolated from the rest of the world and from the US in our own way, right? So we have this influence that we adapt into our daily life, and we speak a lot of Spanglish, and we get all of this pop influence into our daily culture and the music and all of that. But then we don't get as directly exposed to those Colombian influences, Mexican influences. It's something that we have to seek out or we become more exposed to once we leave the island. So it was trying to find, okay, where do I fit? Because technically I am American, but not in the way that my American friends are, right? And I'm also Latina, but not in the way that my Latino friends are, or we don't have the exact same experience, right? So it's always this piece of adapting and trying to find where you fit. And the cool thing is that you find out that you fit in many different places in your own way.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. That's such a wonderful, adventurous story.
Thank you.
How did your Puerto Rican background influence your approach to business?
Wow. Um, we are go getters,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, so growing up in Puerto Rico, I was born and raised in the capital or capital adjacent, right? So very urban metropolitan areas. And in the way we do business, we have a very direct influence from the East Coast in the US. So we're very driven, we're very forward, we're very fast paced. I graduated, became a CPA, and I went to work for a big four accounting firm. And so the language, even the official language of the firm was English, right? A lot of the clients that I worked with initially were American corporations or like continental based corporations that had a branch in Puerto Rico. So we would do the taxes for that branch. Or expats, executives that were from other countries working in the US, and they had some Puerto Rico income, and we would do their taxes, or sometimes it would also be American executives that were living abroad. And for some reason, those clients were also funneled to us. So for me, that's not the experience of everybody, but for me in the accounting field, in the finance field, I was very much working within a bilingual American US environment where we like spoke Spanish every day in the office, but we were communicating with our clients and with our peers locally in English all of the time. So it was fun.
That's amazing. So what do you think is the biggest financial mistake you see small businesses make?
Thinking that they are too small to be taking themselves too seriously, right? Um, you need to have your books in order. You can't be doing this in the back of a napkin or an Excel spreadsheet. There's tools out there, right? The big guys are using those tools. Maybe you don't go and buy, the Oracle system
Mhm.
or you don't buy NetSuite, but there's affordable tools for you so that you can start doing things right from the very beginning. You need a budget. You need to separate your personal expenses from your business.
Yes.
Even the legal structure, right? Sometimes people think, oh, I'm just a small business. Like, I'm just going to do it as a DBA. Well, why? There's many other ways that you can structure that where it's not super cumbersome, but you have some formality and you're protecting yourself, your personal assets, right? While you're also indulging in your entrepreneurial adventure.
Makes sense. Yes. So how do you think has the role of a controller evolved in the last 21 years?
We have to be thinking ahead, be advisors. We also, I feel like businesses, industry life is demanding of us not to just look at the past, but also start looking at the future. And so dip into those FP&A activities and even like into those CFO roles, right? Some controllers are making decent money, so their employers or their clients want to make sure that they're doing advisory, they're thought partners in this process and not just chugging away, looking at numbers and putting together a financial statement.
Awesome. So you've been a CPA for 21 years ago, and now what do you think, how has your journey been? And how do you think a fractional controller is crucial for growing businesses?
Well, I've had a dynamic and diverse career, which I love. I think part of it is your personality, but I also feel like a lot of it has to do with like the investments you have made in yourself, right? And so I got my degree and I immediately studied for my CPA exam. There's a lot of people that say, I'm not going to go into public accounting. Why do I need a CPA license? Um, and I will tell you this, I have never been an auditor, like I have never had to sign financial statements, nor do I want to, but having my CPA license has opened doors for me, right? It got me accepted immediately after my internship at Deloitte, where I worked for 2 years, and it was the best boot camp that I could have possibly attended. After that, I got invited to join financial planning team. It was like the first formal team in a financial institution in Puerto Rico. Um, it's a very young career and discipline in Puerto Rico. And so I was part of that. And so again, the woman running this division, she was a CPA. So she favored CPAs, as part of her team. I moved to Spain and I ended up managing a group of 50 teachers. Mind you, I didn't have to have a CPA, but the CPA allowed me to have the experiences in tax and financial planning that gave me the skill set to like be able to run that language teaching department and manage all of those people, right? And then coming back, it definitely helped me jump right back into the accounting world. Yes, I think that was part of your question. Can you remind me what the second part of the question was?
Yes. So the second part was now you have a fractional controller service, right, that you provide. So how crucial is that for growing businesses?
Yes. So, like I said, a controller is going to be a thought partner for you, right? They're going to be an advisor. They're going to think about things that you are not or haven't thought about. Some people start off doing their own accounting. I have some thoughts on that. But let's say you have some accounting skills and you started doing your bookkeeping, or you had somebody in-house who was doing that for you, or maybe you went with a small independent practitioner. They're doing bookkeeping. At some point, your business is going to need a little bit more than that, right? To make sure that you're matching your income to your expenses. Probably you're going to start needing some cash flow management if you're growing super fast, or you're going to start needing internal controls like I have seen it. Businesses opening multiple locations in retail, having all sorts of cash transactions now, and they start seeing that they're spent, or their cash is not being deposited timely, and things like that. A controller can come in and think ahead about all of these things and put controls in place to make sure that your business is being served and can sustain that growth that you have been working so hard for.
Makes sense. That's super crucial. So how do you help businesses transition from small to medium sized?
I think a lot of it comes from them, but I think it's also this partnership. Okay, you want to grow. What do you need to grow? Right? Are you bringing the revenue today that you need today? How much do you need to bring in so that you can go into the next stage? Okay, let's map this out. Let's make sure you have a plan. What does that look like in terms of a budget? What does that mean in terms of like the number of people that you need in your team to be able to bring in that much revenue? Is it realistic? Because sometimes businesses can err on two extremes. Sometimes they're overly positive about all of the money they can bring in, and it's my job to be like, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? What if like something like COVID happens again? Or what if the weather is not favorable for you this year? All sorts of things can happen, right? Have you thought about these things to make sure that this number is realistic? Because you don't want to have 12 months of comparing your number actuals, like your results, to unrealistic expectations and not be able to make them. That's going to feel so bad for you, for morale, right? Or they can also stay on the short end of it. They're not pushing themselves too far. Well, what if you did this? What if you try to push yourself here? What if you thought about these other strategies? So we're here to kind of like be like a little angel and a devil on both ends of the spectrum, right? So that they can think about opportunities, but also the risks that they might face.
Yes, that makes sense. I think every business needs Melissa.
Yes.
So, what financial metrics should small business owners focus on? So, what financial metrics do you think small business owners should focus on?
I would say my favorite one is the burn rate. You want to really understand where your cash is and how quickly are you being able to collect that cash versus how quickly it's going out the door, right? You can be bringing in revenue, but cash is king. And if you don't have that cash with you, you're not going to be able to last long.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for giving us this insight on this question. So, how do you think cultural differences impact financial management?
I definitely see it. I will go back to my days in Puerto Rico when we were starting to educate people on the importance of financial planning. I think, a lot of small businesses, especially in the Latin American community, they think they're too small. And so I don't need a budget. I don't need a financial planner. Do I really need a CPA when I can go to like, H&R Block, and file my taxes? Like, why am I spending that money? Whereas, you know, here in the US, and it's not a blanket statement, but we've had some of these um, things ingrained as part of our culture where we understand that it's more of an investment, right? Rather than an expense. You're investing the money in yourself. Um, and it might be a thing, obviously, you see it more in small businesses, and maybe small business to small business here is not very different from what we see when we see in Latin America. But even as they grow, it's like you're paying these professionals, these advisors, because they have seen it, right? They have seen it with bigger businesses. So they're offering you the opportunity to work with them at a smaller scale for a fraction of the cost of like what having an in-house expert would be. But at the same time, they have an expertise, right? And they are going to produce results for your business. So it's an opportunity for them to see that as a business partner to help you grow as an investment into your company. And so that education can be challenging for somebody who's growing and maybe doesn't have a finance background or a business background.
Makes sense. Yes, because like coming from different cultures, we are uh, we're customized, I guess, to think of finance in a different way. So having someone with that expertise is very, very helpful. So how has your immigrant, like you being having an immigrant experience, helped you in your business, in your financial decisions, and you helping your clients?
Yeah, I think with my clients, it comes to the language piece of it. When I was teaching English or when I have taught Spanish, because I have also done that, people are anxious and nervous because they don't know. They have things that they want to communicate, but they don't have the words to communicate them. So it makes them anxious, it makes them nervous. It actually often makes them angry, right? And so with business, it can be the same thing, right? Let's talk about when I was a financial planner. I had this client, an attorney, very smart woman, does not have an affinity for numbers, did not want to talk about it, did not want to be involved in the conversation. The husband was basically mostly in charge of everything at home, but that can't work because as a husband and wife, you're a partnership, right? You both have to be involved. You both have to understand. The same happens in a business. Um, there's depending on the business owner and what they do, there's some business owners who will have a better understanding of finance and financial statements, where there are others that are not as comfortable. And so it's allowed me to come from a place of empathy, breaking down the language so that I'm not using fancy words with them, and that I am adapting my way of communicating into a language that they can understand so they can feel comfortable and in turn open up more to me so that I can serve them better.
Amazing, amazing. So, what's your approach to proactive problem solving in finance?
You have to listen. You have to pay attention to details. So when I say you have to listen, people will tell you a lot about what's going on and where they need help without knowing that they are doing so, right? So right now I'm working with a client helping them document their processes, right? But by asking questions about the processes they already have in place, I am identifying other areas where they need help because there's a gap in the process or because there's a tool that could help them automate, right? To make it more efficient for them. And it's not listening, but it's also like putting your consultant hat on in every single interaction or conversation that you have with everybody at all levels um, of the organization as well. Because, the owners are right here, but the staff is involved in the day to day and the details. So don't expect to collect your information or to wear your consultant hat just at this level of conversation. Wear it the entire time so that you can capture these opportunities to help them and really add value.
Amazing. That's great insight. So, how do you help your clients understand complex financial concepts?
I think we break it down. So I did a big implementation with a client. They were big. It was ASC 842 leases for my accounting peers. And I was giving an update of what we were doing and how the project was going, and the COO said, okay, can you explain what the ASC 842 is? Right? It's like, good point. And so in that particular example, it was telling them, well, airlines have this fleet of airplanes, right? And it was basically because of the airlines that the ASC 842 was first thought of and implemented, because when looking at the financial statements, what the users were seeing is that you use a fleet of planes, but nowhere on your financial statements can I see those assets. Why? Oh, they were listed on a note to the financial statements that said that they were leasing these airplanes from companies like Boeing and things like that, but they didn't really own them. It was like, well, this is a very significant asset for you. You really don't have a business if you don't have planes, right? That is what you do. You use planes in and out to move people from one place to the other. So even if you don't owe them, you have a right of use to these assets. I want to see that reflected in your financial statements. And you can give me immediate feedback, but you're nodding. That makes me think that you kind of can understand that concept. You don't need to understand the intricacies on how we test that, right? To do the accounting, but at least you understand, okay, ASC 842, it's meant to show us those assets that you don't own, but you still need in order to function in your business. So I try to find analogies like that to help them understand in a simplified way what it is that we're trying to accomplish.
Amazing. Well, you helped me understand. So,
Love it.
so what inspired you to start Capitalized Consulting, which is your company?
Yep. I was at a bit of a crossroads, right? I had been working in the outsourced accounting and controller space for the past 10 years here in Colorado. And I love the numbers. I enjoy my relationship with my clients. But I wasn't feeling satisfied. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I wasn't feeling fulfilled in the public accounting world, and I wasn't feeling fulfilled in the corporate world. And when I lost my job at the beginning of July of this year, I decided to take a step back and think about, what do you really want? Forget about what employers want and what they're offering you to get it, right? What do you want? What makes you happy? And I realized, well, what makes me happy is working with numbers, um, being emotional support for my clients, right? Helping them get to where they want to go. But also then it was like, okay, you like all of that. What is it that you don't like? I don't like the long hours. I don't like the long hours. I don't like people telling me how I do my job or how many hours I need to be at my desk or when I need to start my day or how many hours I need to drive to and from work, right? Or how I manage my calendar. Been doing this for 21 years and I have been successful in my career, right? Um, so I was like, you know what? I just want to do what makes me happy. And I know I have been successful at, but do it for myself.
I love that. I love that. 21 years is a long time, 2 decades. So,
Yeah.
awesome. So, what's your advice for businesses facing financial challenges?
I think look for a thought partner, but don't look for somebody that's going to tell you only what you want to hear. You want to have somebody that's going to push back and say, you could be doing this better. Um, you could change this. You could automate that. You're wasting money here. And it's going to be hard, and nobody likes change, and nobody likes criticism, right? There has to be animosity and there has to be trust, and you really have to like each other. But at the same time, you don't want somebody who's going to agree with you just for the sake of it, because that's not going to help you. And then be like, know what you want, what your yes and your no's are, right? Make a short list of those so that you can be true to yourself and your business's values. But then be flexible and open to listening to what these other experts are bringing to the table.
Absolutely. Yes, that makes sense. And it's very hard when it comes to finance, because that's like the hardest conversation you have, even with people in that who are experts. So
Business is personal, money is personal. I don't care
Yes.
what anybody will tell you. It is.
Yes. Absolutely. How do you build trust with your new clients?
I just listen and learn from them. My clients have a lot to teach me. They know their business. I'm just coming in. I'm new, right? So my first approach with them, I'm just here to learn from you and what you are doing. I trust myself enough to know that I will be able to add value, but I'm also humble enough to understand and know that they are experts at what they do. So I also need to learn from them. Um, and then just that gentleness and that empathy, right? Like they are as nervous as you are coming into the relationship. And I think if you show them that you're a human being, they appreciate that. And then it just becomes more approachable for everybody.
Absolutely. How do you prepare your clients for growth? Like as their businesses are growing, how do you help them prepare for it?
Yes. With radical truth, um, I guess it's the same way that I would prepare my teams. I don't like to sugarcoat things. I'll be kind and I'll be gentle, but I will be transparent, right? So, this is what you are aiming for to get here. This is all that we need to do. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be trial and error. It's going to feel chaotic because we are adding change, right? Our brains are going to hurt because we're stepping away from our comfort zone. But if we have a plan and we stick to it, it'll be worth it and it'll get better. And then we'll be excited because we get to celebrate our wins.
Awesome. Very nice. What is the most rewarding aspect of your work?
I just gaining my clients' trust and seeing them relax and then open up to me. Um, the goal is not necessarily becoming friends, but it happens a lot of the time because it becomes a very intimate relationship. And just getting there. And honestly, this is gonna sound weird, but getting them to a point where they don't need me anymore. I don't want to be my client's in-house controller. If a client gets to a point where they need to bring somebody in-house, right? Or they can do the work that I was coaching them on now on their own. It's like they graduated. It means that they're doing it. They're killing it. So that makes me excited. And then I send them on their merry way. And it frees up my time also to work with a new client that is just starting out and wants to get to that same place.
Amazing. So, how do you measure success for your clients?
Depending on the project, right? So I had a client that I worked with on training their team. They had bought the business along with the ERP that the previous business had been using, and nobody in their internal accounting team knew how to use that ERP. They had an external bookkeeper that was also not very well versed in that ERP, right? Didn't know what to look for. And so their financials were not getting out. Whatever they had was not accurate. And I was able to put together checks and balances that were easy for their internal team to follow, clean up what was messy before, and then show them how to stay on top of it and what things to look out for them to correct and in the future. So it's a process of 2 years. Um, and the goal was for them to be able to do it internally on their own. So that was successful when they said, "We got this."
That's amazing. It's bittersweet.
Yes.
So, how do you stay current with financial regulations?
Part of networking groups. So different networking groups for different purposes. I am part of two that are with other accountants and CPAs. One is with the Colorado Society of CPAs, and it is the Alliance for Independent Accountants. It's pretty cool because it's sponsored by our local society, right? And so we're talking about current trends. They're always pointing out things that are coming out in terms of regulations and things like that. And then they provide training for that, which is awesome. And then the other group that I have is not just CPAs. There's a little bit bigger of a mix. We meet once a quarter, but then we also have this email group where if we see a client that is going through something that we haven't seen before, we can reach out to this group of experts and ask for guidance or to point us in the right direction. We are also bringing up things that are relevant to us in our day to day. So staying connected with your peers.
Yes, networking.
Yep. Yep.
So, what is your vision for Capitalized Consulting?
Well, we are rebranding a little bit in the new year. Yes. I just submitted my trademark application for Steady Hand Accounting and Advisory. When I created the business, I just wanted to have a name, just didn't want to like waste a lot of time thinking about it. I just needed to bite the bullet and go. And that's how capitalized consulting came. Capitalized comes from capitalized expenses the business makes, and consulting because it's a lot of what I do. But I think a lot of the times outside of accounting and finance folks, it's hard for people to understand exactly what I do from that name. So I wanted to find something that gave a little bit of insight of who I am with that steady hand where I walk my clients through the financial and accounting jungle calmly and securely. Um, and then the accounting piece in my name so that they know, I have a steady hand and I do accounting for you, right? So that it's easier for them to understand. So I just submitted that, applied for my DBA, have that, and I will be, updating my socials and my website and all of that. Yeah, and then see where it takes me. The cool thing about what I do, I have clients that I serve on a recurring basis, and I do the same thing for them every month. But then I also, the consulting piece of it, and at this level of controller, there's a lot of project work, right? So the business season just brings like this whole set of opportunities for you to work on interesting projects and things, depending on what clients have done or are looking to do. It could be documenting a process, it could be prepping their financials right before an audit. So just excited for the journey.
Amazing. Congratulations on your big step.
Thank you.
So, as an immigrant woman entrepreneur who's been in the accounting space for 21 years, what would be your 3 takeaways for someone starting new in this space and is also an immigrant woman?
Study, right? Get certified. If it's not the CPA and there's a different certification that you want to pursue, do it. That is an investment in yourself. And it helps with public perception of who you are as credibility. Work on your networks. Don't wait until you're ready to start a business. Like, work on your network all the time. We are selling and marketing ourselves every day of our lives, right? And you want to make sure that you leave people feeling good about having interacted with you, that you added value, that you helped them in some way. That's going to pay off. That's going to pay off in big ways. Even, if you don't realize it today, it will come back to you. And believe in yourself, bet on yourself, because if you don't do it, who will, right? You are your biggest asset and your biggest advocate. So believe it, do it, and go for it. We can all make it work. We can all do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So tell our listeners about the services you offer and how can someone work with you?
Of course. So I'm going to focus on this time of year, when people are getting ready for audit and tax season. I help clients prepare for that process, right? to make sure that your financials are in order so that your tax expert can prepare your tax return and find those deductions and credit opportunities that you need. For the audits, I also help to make sure that you are GAAP compliant before you go to your auditors. And I can help you manage the audit process. So coordinating with the auditors, providing the backup documents and all of that so that you can pass with flying colors. And I want to say also focusing very big on 1099 compliance this time of year. As business owners, if we're making payments to independent contractors, and we're using ACH, cash, checks, we need to file those 1099s by the end of January to avoid very hefty penalties. And so I'm focusing on that at the beginning of the year to make sure that all of my clients are compliant. So if anybody needs help in those areas right now, I'm happy to take a look and support you.
Amazing. You can connect with Melissa on her LinkedIn and her email. I will have all of that in the show notes for our listeners. Thank you so much for spending your time today and being on this show.
Anisha, thank you so much. I am so excited for what you're doing with this, and I can't wait to listen to all of the episodes. You are phenomenal, so thank you so much.
Thank you. As we wrap this episode with Melissa Armstrong, remember that strong financial foundations build lasting success. This is Anisha Jennings reminding you that sometimes the best growth happens when you have the right numbers person in your corner. Until next time.